we can change how we read the law. Take your stuff, destroy it, and say, oops. That's dangerous.
Welcome to GOA State of the Second podcast. My name is John, and today we have a very special episode. The format's a little different than what we normally do. I'm in my home studio, and I have Jeremiah from Slidefire, the inventor, the owner of the bump stock. Jeremiah, how are you, my friend? Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, John. I'm exceptionally well.
I appreciate you doing this so last minute, but let's go ahead. Let's get a little bit of backstory about who you are, and then we'll jump into the meat and potatoes of this podcast.
All right. So back in 2010, I created a small company called Slidefire Solutions. I'm a retired military Air Force veteran, and I came back, created an invention, thought it was neat, showed it to a couple of friends. They thought it was neat. And I grew up as a dirt farmer in West Texas and joined the military when I was young, and then decided to figure out how to be an inventor and businessman. So it's a really interesting story. My goal was to sell 500 units the first year. Back then, the only thing on social media was YouTube. I put a couple of videos out, and we sold the first 500 in the first 4 days, and Slidefire was born.
That is the definition of the American dream right there.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into our first segment real quick, because I want to get into your full story. Our first segment is rapid fire. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You answer them as quickly or as slowly as you want. Question number 1 is, what is your dream gun?
Oh, I've got my little Zev 9mm. That's one of my dream guns, and my Knight's armament. My Knight's armament AR-10, that thing is a beast. That's my dream gun.
God, you are making me jealous on the inside. What is your go-to EDC?
I pretty much have a gun in every vehicle. So I've got a bunch of everyday carries. Like, I've got a gun, in this drawer and that drawer. So one that goes bang, like every one of them's tested. I mean, that's pretty much my everyday carry, is one that'll go bang.
That is a great answer. We haven't had that before. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No, I like to smoke my pineapples with my steaks and eat them separate.
Ooh,
You should try it. 270 for about an hour and a half. Cook them separate from your steaks. That's good. That's how you eat pineapple.
What's your favorite state to visit?
To visit? The state of peacefulness. No, East Tennessee. That's where the peace is. Like, every time I leave East Tennessee, I can't wait to get back. It's absolutely gorgeous out here.
My Kaylee, our other co-host, would 100% agree with that, being from East Tennessee. Last question is, are aliens real?
Man, that's a tough one. Half the time, I think we're walking around with them, as crazy as some people sound. They were definitely not from this planet. So, I mean, I don't know. I definitely know there's something out there that we don't understand. I don't know if they're from outer space or inner space. We'll see, I guess, one day, once they pop off the files and declassify some things, I guess.
Well, I appreciate you answering those. That is our rapid fire segment. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Slidefire, the bump stock, has been this big thing that you guys took off when you first launched it, and then we had the ban, and now we've got the ban lifted. Let's just go into the whirlwind of that story and the story of Slidefire.
Okay, so like I briefly said, it was received with just unprecedented response. Like, I never expected for people to enjoy the product as much as I did. And over the course of about the first 3 or 4 years, we expanded. A lot of people believed that we just had one product. I actually brought 39 different products to the market across 11 different platforms. So we grew to a massive company very, very quickly. And we had gotten numerous letters from the ATF whenever I submitted my first product back in 2010 that we were well within our rights and well within the law. And we just continued to expand our business on that. And then the unfortunate incidents of October 1st of 2017, the Las Vegas shooting, put a spotlight on my company that, I'll explain later, that I believe is very, very unfair, because my product doesn't shoot bullets. Like, you're going to ban something to stop mass shootings, and you ban something that doesn't stop bullets. We're going to expand on that later. But after that, my company was forced to shut down. The government destroyed over 80,000 units of my inventory that I had built up over the years. They told me to kick rocks. And then, so for the last 5 years, I moved to East Tennessee a couple of years ago, and we've been continuing to fight. When the Fifth Circuit overturned the ban, that's when the real fight started for us as Slide Fire, as far as getting our tooling back up and serviceable. That was the writing on the wall for me, is whenever I knew that the Fifth Circuit caused the division in the circuit courts, that I actually had a shot. Because prior to that, the 2 years prior to that, the Supreme Court had denied to hear my case. So fast forward to last fall, when the Supreme Court did agree to hear the case, they moved along very, very quickly. And then this June, 6-3, in our favor, that the government overreached, that my product is not a machine gun. It does not cause an automatic firing state, just like the ATF said for numerous years. And the Supreme Court overturned that ban, and we were allowed to completely fire back up across all the states where there's not these draconian laws that say bump stocks do things that they don't do. And that sort of put us to where we are now. We've got 3 of our products back online. We were able to bring 2 of the products back out for Thanksgiving, and we're just pushing hard now into 2025 to get the rest of our products back online. And we've just had an overwhelming support and response from the public. People are just happy to see us. And as an inventor, that is like the biggest compliment for me. People liked our stuff, and I just want to get it back to the people. And for GOA, thank you guys, sincerely. Thank you guys for fighting. And I appreciate all the hard work that y'all did and continue to do for all of the people and our Second Amendment rights.
I appreciate you saying that. I cannot take credit for that. I have to thank our federal affairs team, Eric Pratt, Aiden over there, Ben Sanderson. That whole team worked super hard. Our lawyers worked super hard on that case. We're proud to do it. We've done it before. We always say we sue on the text, history, and tradition of the Second Amendment, and the bump stock is part of that text, history, and tradition. So while I'm thinking about it and talking to you, what was that period between the ban and the court case going through the Fifth Circuit? What was that like? And then you going into retooling everything up. That's got to be, you're sitting on pins and needles, and now you're like, okay, I got to redo all this. I've got to start basically from scratch.
Oh yeah. So after they took my inventory, it was 85,000 units, shredded them. That's what this lawsuit is based on. I didn't have any recourse. I was told to kick rocks. There was no legal avenue to recover any type of damages for the property that they seized and destroyed. And for the most part, I just had to go on with life and figure out how to restart. So there was a good three-year period there that I was just left in limbo. And it was really interesting, and it's a funny story because my tooling nearly got destroyed in the process. I was having it warehoused at one of the injection molding companies that were running my tooling here in the States, and it had been sitting dormant for years, and they were ready to move it down the line because it was just taking up space. So we nearly didn't get a reset or a slide fire reboot, as I'm calling it. When we did get the word from the Fifth Circuit, we flew up to Pennsylvania, got our tooling, and drove it all the way down to Texas to start getting things in preparation for the Supreme Court to hear it. And then once the Supreme Court heard it and ruled on it, it has been a non-stop sprint. A lot of people, a lot of our customers, and a lot of the people that were previous customers are asking us about, when are you going to bring out the AK model or the 1022 model or a couple of the other products that we had online? And the answer to that soon. Like, we're working as fast as we can, or I'm working as fast as I can, being Tommy. But manufacturing's hard. Like, we have to build these things. It's not like we can just go on Amazon.com and click a button, it shows up for you. We have to build each and every one of these. And starting from zero, starting from scratch has been extremely difficult, but very rewarding. And it's wonderful when people show up and support you by buying your product. Like, that is the biggest thank you. So,
yeah, I mean, you guys, you mentioned the 80,000 units that you had sitting there that were just completely destroyed. We talked about it in our press release, not only this attack on the Second Amendment, but also on the Fourth Amendment and illegal seizure. And they took not only your inventory, but they took all the other people's inventory and destroyed it. And everybody had to destroy everything. And people who own these items that were deemed legal, now deemed illegal, had to get it. And we saw this with your case, kind of kicked off what we like to call the ATF war on plastic, where we saw it with your item, and then they went after the pistol braces, and they went after this. It's the same attack, but from different angles. And I applaud you for pulling up your bootstraps like a true American, fighting the good fight, and then now bringing the company back from like a phoenix from the ashes, and showing that, hey, we are not done with this. We're going to continue to do this and continue to support the Second Amendment and this awesome item of a bump stock, which is so much fun. If you haven't used one, use one. Well, if you want to say anything before we hop into our next segment.
Let's touch base real quick, because a lot of people want to say this is about bump stocks, especially on the lawsuit that we just filed. And it's not about bump stocks so much as it is, you broke my stuff. Like, if you break something, you pay for it, right? That's what we teach our children. Like, you go through a store and you break something, you should pay for it. You damaged someone's property. You took my stuff and broke it. And then told me to go pound sand. It's time to pay the piper. The Supreme Court said so. So this should scare everybody, that they just show up to your store and break your stuff and tell you to pound sand. That's exactly what they did to me. And that's not America. That's what the mafia does. They come in and break your stuff and tell you to pound sand. So constitutional takings, like compensation for takings, is a constitutional right. Like, think eminent domain. The government has the right to come and take your land for, think, Army Corps of Engineering or something like that. But they have to compensate you what it's worth. That did not happen. And that's a dangerous precedent to set in this country. We can change the laws, or, well, they didn't even change the law. We can change how we read the law. Take your stuff, destroy it, and say, oops. That's dangerous.
I couldn't agree more on that. And that brings us into our next segment, which is From the Soapbox. This is where we talk about the spicy topic of this episode. And the spicy topic of this episode is what you just mentioned, is the government not giving you payment, the lawsuit that you just filed to get that back. Let's go ahead and talk about what you can and can't, what you can talk about this lawsuit.
Well, I mean, I pretty much put everything out there in that 97-page document. That was one of the reasons why I blasted it out as complete as I did, because I wanted the entire truth to be known about it. In March of 19 is when the ban went into effect. I coordinated with the ATF. I surrendered all of my inventory. They destroyed it. And because of the procedural way things were done, so the ATF doesn't make law. We've had those conversations before. People know that. They make rules. And I mean, even the ATF says that. But under those rules is the guise of, okay, it's just a rule. It's a suggestion. But if you don't do it, I mean, for me, 80,000 units, what is that, 700,000 years in prison and something like $15 billion in fines? Like, how is that okay? Like, did I have a choice? Like, if I didn't surrender it, like, that's to put someone in that position without laws being made is a very, very dangerous place to be. When you can sit there and change how you interpret things and levy lifetimes of penalties and fines, that's not how our system was designed. And it's a scary place to be.
Well, and that's always our take. The ATF just, first off, overreach by the ATF all the time. And they attack the average day American or people like you who own companies. This is not just an assault on plastic where they're, like I said, you guys it was kind of a cascading effect once the bump stock banned in, because then they could go after pistol braces, frame and receivers. We've seen the attacks on polymer 80s and
Oh, yeah.
a whole bunch of other stuff. But for them to come up with a ruling on an item and then to change their mind and then make it the lay of the land, the word of law, is insane, because they're a regulatory agency. They do not have the right to make laws. And we saw that with pistol braces. We saw it with the bump stocks. They are attacking not only this, what we like to coin, like I said, the war on plastic, but they're also attacking us at the dinner table. I mean, from you as an owner of a company, 80,000 units, that's a lot of cash that you had sitting there in inventory that was going
Millions
to be sold
of dollars.
And now they just took it all.
Well, and here's the thing, John. Not only just millions of dollars in inventory, millions of dollars in costs. I spent millions of dollars building that. Everything that I earned, I put back into my company. And they just took it and destroyed it. So, and that's where I think a lot of people, well, they took his stuff and broke it. Okay. They took my money, man. Like, I worked years for that, a decade building this company, and they just destroyed everything. And not only that, my item was unique. There was nothing on it like that out in the market. So I have numerous patents. Patents are only good for 20 years, and you took 25% of their life. Like, there's half a decade that I lost that I could have been using my intellectual property to build something for my children or build something for my future. And they took that from me as well. And that's also in the lawsuit. So that will be interesting to see how that goes. I don't know if there's any procedural way they could add time to my patents. Like, I'm just not familiar with that part. But I know that they devalued them by doing what they did and misguided. I mean, I want to make sure I use the correct words. Words are important.
Yeah, I mean, to come in and destroy your company could have set, and it can set a precedent. I mean, not only yours, but we saw the same thing with SB Tactical with the braces.
Mm-hmm.
They can go in and set, and this is setting a precedent where they could go, okay, well, your product we deem unfit for use or illegal, and just destroy companies, which is not only destroying, you as the owner, but it destroys all your employees' life and livelihood. It destroys everything in between.
Well, and here's the funny thing that I look about it is a lot of these people are veterans. They're veteran-owned companies. So you have a government that these people sacrificed their livelihoods for. And they're coming back and pursuing their own dreams to build a company for their family, build a future for their family. And the American dream's going for them. They're successful. And then the government shows up. The same government that they sacrificed their lives for. And I'm like, that's the biggest travesty. What a big old slap in the face. Like, what else do you want from them? They've given them your youth, their time, a lot of them their lives, and their health, and you come back and you slap them in the face like that. That's a hard one to swallow. So,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we've been fighting and still have been fighting the fight on the fiduciary rule with the VA, and we're continuing that fight. That's been a 20 plus year fight that we've been fighting because they're taking away veterans' gun rights because they're coming in and need assistance financially. And
That one actually affected me, John. Like when I started Slide Fire, because of my disability, my injuries, um, I had 2 brain surgeries when I returned back in '04, and I was in really bad shape. So obviously, I didn't handle the finances for a while. I couldn't even make coffee. Like I was in bad shape. Well, under, I believe it's the Brady rule. Is that the one it is?
I believe so.
That if you can't manage your finances, you're deemed incompetent. That's the way the Brady rule is, but that's not the way a court has defined you incompetent. So they're just wrapping up a lot of veterans. And when I started my company, I had to deal with that, and I had to go through and fill out all the paperwork and everything else to get that same tag that you're talking about removed so that it didn't affect me. And it's ridiculous. And on top of it, it doesn't meet the requirements under the law for people to be added, for veterans to be added as unable or incompetent. Like because you don't handle your financial responsibilities, you have to be adjudicated by a court. That's what the law says. And that, I hope y'all win that one. That one's a horrible one.
I think we had got a big win on it early last year or earlier this year, and we should continue to get wins on that case. It's insane to think that the government can control your rights, your God-given rights, as Eric Pratt likes to say, over the simplest of things. Let's talk about Slide Fire. And, you know, we had the Vegas shooting, which was a tragedy. They ban you 2 years later. You've got 5 years of this fight. What was that fight like for you? Being sitting, because a lot of people, they see these things, they know about it, but we've never had somebody who's actually sat there and fought that's been on the podcast yet.
Man, I got hit from so many different angles because of the Vegas shooting. Like I got sued by over 1,000 people. There was a group of people that decided not to sue any of the Second Amendment companies, which I thought that is worth noting. I think that was a very honorable thing to do. And the reasons they gave was, we don't believe guns cause violence. We believe people do. And we're not going to sue gun manufacturers for what a person did. And, but so those people still exist. I spent about 2 years dealing with all of that, the fallout from the Vegas. MGM ended up settling. Everything ended up going away. But that whole thing was just a whirlwind, because, I mean, you literally wake up one morning, you get coffee, and you start to walk across the street, and your world gets turned upside down. I don't think I can stress how crazy that time period was, because to everybody else in the world, it was this massive industry, this bump stock industry, and we're going to shut down this evil industry. It was just me. Like, I am the industry. I hold all the patents. All of the bump stocks originate from Slide Fire. So that was an immense amount of pressure, an immense amount of attacks. Like, I didn't sleep in my own home for about 3 months. Like, I had people hunting my children. It wasn't fun. It was a very, very difficult time. And I love how the people that want to preach tolerance, when horrible things like that happen, become the vilest and most atrocious individuals. The hate mail, the ugly things that were done and said in the name of trying to promote peace. It's disgusting. It really is. And I think that needs to be told as well. We have bad actors. We have some bad actors out there that just that just want ugly things for people, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we see it all the time where people are like, "Oh, it's the gun's fault." Well, is it the car's fault? Is it the fork's fault for you eating too much? It is the individual, and it's sad to see that as a society that nobody can take accountability anymore.
Well, and that word right there is what scares most people is accountability, because when you start taking accountability, you've got to start asking yourself hard questions. And when you do that, there's a good amount of people out there that wouldn't be happy with their own answers. They know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's why I think that there's that big push to get rid of those things, such as accountability. Because then, if you're not accountable, you're not doing anything wrong.
So we talked about the 2 years of lawsuits leading up to the ban.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about them coming in. When the ban, what was the feeling when the ruling came in? I know where I was when the ruling came in. I was working at a gun store and I read it and I was like, this rule. What? No, this is not an illegal item. So I want to hear your side of that.
Man, that one was a hard one because the whole time I thought somebody was going to come in. Like somebody's going to stop this. Because just like you, this is not illegal. I have multiple letters here. I know how to read the law. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the early law in the early 1900s. They actually knew how to write good laws that the average person could read and understand. So I knew it wasn't illegal. And I was like, all the way up until the last day, I was like, somebody's going to stop this. This is madness. And yeah, nobody did. I mean, that's a pretty lonely feeling whenever you're like, nobody cares. And the way they did it, like I said earlier, because they went through rulemaking, there's nothing I could do about it. Because at a blink of an eye, they went, yeah, we used to call them bump stocks. Now we call them machine guns. And I'm like, but you didn't change any words. So in a blink of an eye, everything was just ripped out from under me. And I had no legal recourse. And that's what I was talking about earlier as well, is until the Supreme Court ruled, there was nothing I could do. I just had to sit by and take it. So I'm done sitting around. Like, it's time. It's time to pay the piper. You broke my stuff. It's not cool. Like, I hope everyone hears. I really do. Because this is wrong on so many levels. It's just horrible. It's wrong. And the precedent it sets. And you're right. I made nearly 1 million of these things. There are hundreds of thousands of Americans out there. I met a bunch of them out at the gun show this weekend here in Knoxville that destroyed them because under the threat of prosecution, that if they did not, the government would throw them in jail. They destroyed their property. That's not okay. It's not right. And I think that word you used, accountability, I think someone needs to be held accountable. And we have a way of doing that. I mean, like I said earlier, your right to compensation for a takings is a constitutional right. So what I'm asking the courts to do is make that right. Y'all do the math. Y'all figure it out. You owe me 6 years of interest. Let me know. I don't know if I'll ever see it. I've lost a lot of hope in this government. Like the things that they've done to me, and the stories that I could tell you on another time would just crush your soul. So, like I said, it was the American dream until the government showed up. So I'm back for round 2. So,
in the words of Rocky, you didn't hear no bell. So, I gotta make one pop culture reference an episode.
You can't quit. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you can't quit.
Well, and you brought up a good point in talking about the gun show and people. A lot of gun owners are law-abiding citizens. We follow the law to the T.
Right.
this just proves, and I know what the government's going to say, and it's unfair, but they're going to go, well, they willingly did this. They willingly
Yeah.
destroyed the item, but it was under the threat and pressure of prosecution. And
Right.
most Americans look at it as law abiding citizens, as law abiding gun owners. We look at it and go, well, I don't want to lose my rights. I don't want to lose my rights to bear arms or hold arms. And because of that, we are quick to react and do what the government tells us under those threats. I mean, we saw it with the bump stock, like, and I keep bringing this up, but we saw it with you. We saw it with the pistol brace ruling, all the people who went and filed for tax stamps because of that. It's ridiculous to think that just like that, a stroke of a pen, a ruling that is not in our favor can make a lot of Americans just give up on the fight. And that's where GOA comes in, because we've been fighting this for 5 years. We've been fighting and putting out letters and putting out briefs and putting in lawsuits. And it's that thing where American citizens that are gun owners they got to just get into the fight. And we've talked about this after the election in some episodes that are going to air later. But as Americans, we look as gun owners, we look at our wins and we look at who we've elected and we go, okay, well, they're going to handle it. But now is the time more than ever. And the amount of attacks we've seen on the Second Amendment over the last 5 to 10 years, now's the time to go to your congressman and your senator and go, no more. No more. Yep. You got to do what I elected you to do. And I hate to say it, but we have a year, because most of these senators are 2-year terms. After about a year and 3 months, they're running for re-election.
Right.
You have to get them while they're there and getting into the fight. But it's crazy to think that, people who you think are on your side aren't on your side and fighting for you. And, it's just insane.
Well, and I want to make sure I get this out there. I don't begrudge President Trump for what he did. I've been quoted before, like, people make mistakes. President Trump is human. And just like they've talked about recently, I think that he listened to some bad suggestions. And I know the NRA came out against me and wanted regulation. And I think he probably listened to them. And I hope he starts listening to y'all. I was happy to see that y'all were in Knoxville this year for y'all's convention. Shortly after that, he put out a statement about GOA. I really hope he listens to y'all. I really do. Because, like you said earlier, gun owners are law-abiding citizens. And so rules only apply to people that listen to them. Why do we have any gun laws in general? Like, why would you prohibit or inhibit a law-abiding citizen's ability to protect their family? So to me, I'm like, any gun laws would be dumb if you're thinking that way, because the criminals don't care. Like, they're already doing whatever they want. So I really hope that GOA can work with President Trump and, like, just peel these draconian laws back, for one, and just stop wasting the time and energy. Like, we've already got laws that say certain things are bad. Enforce those. Go after those people. We don't need to make things more illegal. We just need to be consistent with our rulings, because it's just like raising kids. Consistency is what matters. Like, and what we saw in my case is, we saw consistency for a decade of the rulings as far as the bump stocks go. And then to change that brings chaos throughout the whole system. So I'm really hoping that he listens to y'all guys and heed y'all's advice, and that the American people see some relief from this constant assault on our rights to protect our family.
So. I couldn't agree more. We are working closely with the Trump team, trying to get those rights back, trying to get things like the Hearing Protection Act and the Shush Act passed in the House and the Senate, trying to get items. And for those who don't know, those acts are removing the suppressors from the NFA, but trying to set precedent to get things removed and get our laws restored. GOA, and I'm going to take a page out of my co-host's book. GOA, our goal as GOA is to put ourselves out of business. We want to make the Second Amendment so strong that we no longer have to fight, that we are gone. I can't say that about any other organization out there, but that is our goal. I don't know any other business person who thought that, wants to put themselves out of business, but that's what GOA does. And, you brought up Knoxville. We were in there. President Trump did give addressed the group. He wasn't there in person, but sent over a video. That is on our Rumble account. So if you want to go check out his talk at Goals or his addressing, that is on our Rumble account. And we are proud to say, because the announcement will be going out shortly before this podcast releases, is that we will be back in Knoxville again this year for August 9th and 10th. It'll be our last year in Knoxville, but we will be back again. So we're super excited about bringing Goals back to Knoxville, being back in East Tennessee.
Awesome.
East Tennessee's got a fantastic gun culture. Love the folks of East Tennessee. But you thought you had people in your court. Now you fought this fight, and we talked about the pre-lawsuit or the pre-ban. We talked about the ban up to then. We talked about you retooling. Now we've touched on your lawsuit and right. Everything it means. How do people go to support you for this lawsuit? How do we get the word out that you, besides, this foray that we're talking together, how do we get the word out? What do people need to know, and how do they support you with this lawsuit?
Well, the lawsuit's going to run its course. That's the wonderful thing about federal court is they've got a schedule and they keep to it. And I believe that the truth will prevail. Like, you took my stuff, you broke it. I have a constitutional right to be compensated for what you stole from me. It's pretty simple. As far as supporting me, like, buy bump stock, man. Buy your friends a bump stock. Like, everybody should have a bump stock. Like, it comes right to me, and you know what I do with it? I make more bump stocks. Like, that's what I'm doing. Like, I'm going right back into development. When I stopped, when they shut me down, I had a whole book of ideas. I just didn't have time to get to it all. Round two, like, if I got to go back to work, let's have some fun. Like, I'm going to bring some new cool stuff this time around.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's going to get interesting.
I'm excited. I don't know, hearing what your brain and picking your brain. I'm excited to see what you've got coming out. It's going to be exciting times.
Well, we're going to get the AK back on production. I'm going to chase down that Ruger 1022, figure out where my tooling is on that, get that one back out and running. I want to redesign a couple of the AR models, get those back out there. Got some ideas I'm kicking around for the Glock. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Got to get these tools back up online so I can get back to my drawing board. Like, my buddy Tommy, like I said, he's running the front end of it. He allows me the time to do things like this and to get the production back online. And just cheer for us, man. That's the biggest thing. Just cheer for us.
Well, I am going to be sitting here cheering and preaching from the rooftops that people need to get themselves a bump stock because, just hearing your story, it should resonate with Americans, you and gun owners, Americans and gun owners alike, that you came back from the military with this dream and you started a company from the ground up, built the company, owned the patents, did everything, and then had the government kicking your teeth. And now you are like a phoenix rising from the ashes, building that company back up, telling the government that it is my right to do this, and I'm not going to be silenced, and we're going to make this company as great or greater than it was when you guys kicked in my door and stole my toys and broke them.
Yeah. And it just absolutely blows me away as far as that, the more I sit back and think and go, that happened. Like in the United States of America, they took my stuff and broke it and told me to kick rocks. It's unfathomable to me. Like, what would you do if somebody robbed your house and then told you to, and you knew who did it, and they told you to kick rocks? Like, that's a great wrong that needs to be righted. Otherwise, the system's broken. I mean, if they can just change how they read things, take your things, destroy them, and then go, oops, we made a mistake, and leave you holding the bag, like, that's not America. It's not the land I fought for.
It's sad that is becoming the norm. It really is. And like I said earlier, that the word that we talked about, accountability, is companies and the government do not hold accountability of themselves. And it is now time for us, we the people, to hold the government and everybody accountable for things that they've done, and to do things to right those. And not only for your lawsuit, but for everything else that they've done to the Second Amendment over the years.
Well, John, on that, I think we have a really good chance. The Supreme Court, going through my process and getting to listen to the justices, I think they have the people's best interests at heart. I really do. When the government was sitting there going, well, we notified everybody and we put it in the public registry, the justice's response was pretty sarcastic. He was like, yeah, I'm sure after Americans get home from working all day long, a hard day of labor, they pull up the federal registry to make sure they're not a criminal anymore. Or, I mean, they were not happy with the government's arguments. So, I mean, that gives me hope. But here's the thing is, my statute of limitations, as far as them taking my things, runs out in March. If this would have went on 6 months longer, I would have no recourse. The time limit would have passed. And, justice delayed is justice denied. So we have to be very careful with those things. When bad things happen, we as a people need to make sure we hold those people accountable quickly. And it doesn't take over half a decade to bring these things to resolution. I mean, half a decade, some people don't get that long. And I think that we need to be, and I really hope these new, like Doge, that they're talking about bringing in and cutting some of this red tape and making it more streamlined and making the government more efficient. Maybe we can get the government out of our everyday life. I remember a day whenever I was growing up that the average person didn't talk about the government. The government didn't play that big of a role in your everyday life. Really, you only talked about it a couple times a year, and one of those is when they took your money on tax day. But now, like, we've gotten, as a society, the government plays such a massive role in our lives every day. And it's unnecessary. Like, as Americans, we were born free people. We weren't born to be governed. I mean, we were founded just on the opposite of that, which we're trying to figure out a way to govern ourselves. So, and I think we need to keep that in mind. I think that we need to remember that we as a people don't ask permission. We are the people. I mean, it baffles me that we've forgotten that.
Well, I 100% agree. And the funny part that makes me laugh is you brought up what the justices said, that the average day American does not go look at the registrar and look at what laws have come into place to see if they're criminals. And think about the number of people who could have been prosecuted for a bump stock. Think about the millions of Americans, and because we got to rope in everything else that we talked about. Think of the 65 million or whatever the number of people with pistol braces, the amount of people with bump stocks who became
Right.
felons overnight, if they are not in the echo chamber that is the firearms industry, or not as deep as you and I are into the industry, how would they know
Right.
until they got arrested? They wouldn't. And we saw this again. There's another item that again ties in with yours, is the FRT triggers. They were
Right.
taking people's sales records and going to people's houses. I don't know how many that happened with the bump stock, but I know the FRTs were very public about that. But how many Americans were just instantly felons overnight and didn't even know it?
Well, John, I want to make this clear. I've never given out anybody's sales information. That's one. I'm not required to keep anybody's information, so I don't. And that's one of the. I fight for people's freedoms just like they fight for mine. Like if I'm not required to keep your information, I don't do it. That way, if they come knocking, I don't have it. So I, I encourage people to be that way. Like, be free. Like, if you're not required to keep something, why would you? Like, I don't want your information. I sent you your bump stock. I don't need to know anymore. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, the FRTs, I think they're getting a bad deal. Like, I designed one back in 2011. I had it in my packing book. I knew that one was going to be a nightmare. That's why I hadn't gotten around to it. But in that book, there's a lot of things that I can get around to now, especially now that the Supreme Court ruled. Like, because they made it very, very clear. It's black and white now. You don't get to make up things. And I can read better than most of them can. So, like, that's the thing, is like, whenever they came after me, I'm like, what rules are you going to try to get me on? Like, when I've been sitting here for 12 years trying to figure out how you're going to get me. I can't really, I mean, other than breaking the law like y'all did, like, how are you going to stop physics? Like, that's, my product runs on physics. Like, you're going to ban physics? Like, these guys are insane. Like, it just blows me away. So,
well, that brings up a good point. You invented this item, and then you spent years thinking about how they're going to come after you, and they couldn't. But that's something that had to keep you up at night, just thinking about how are they going to come after me for something that doesn't break the law.
well, I remember in the beginning, like, because the laws are very clear. Like, my product is not a machine gun. It doesn't create an automatic firing cycle. Like, you have to have human input for each and every round fired. So, like, it's very easy to read the law, and just like the justices did at the Supreme Court level, and go, this is not a machine gun. It's all the feelings that people get into it. And they're like, well, it shoots fast. Like, one of the justices, she's like, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, must be a duck. And that's the dangerous part, when you have people say unintelligent statements like that. Because you know as well as I do that just because something looks like it and sounds like it doesn't mean it is. And to assume that it is foolish. So, like, I think that's one of the things that we need to do as far as a people, is educate individuals on those laws. Because most people don't know. Even though justices didn't. Like, listen to the oral arguments on my case, and you can clearly tell that there's a couple of justices that had no clue what the definition of a machine gun was defined by Congress. So I think that needs to be addressed, just for the accountability within the justice system. But back to more of your statement, and I think all of these shall not be infringed is a pretty plain statement written. And just from all the legal work that I've done over the years, like, it's pretty hard to misinterpret shall not be infringed. And I think we need to take a harder look at that. I mean, I have no problem with punishing criminals. If people hurt children, tie a grindstone to them. But to prohibit law-abiding individuals from protecting themselves the way that they see fit, I think is a dangerous line to tread. I just do. And there's not a lot that you can argue that I think would change my mind on that. There's a lot of people that don't like guns, and that's fine. Have a plan to protect yourself. Like, that's all that's required. Like, some people are scared of them. I get it. Like, I shoot with people all the time. And there are people that are terrified of guns just because they're loud. Okay. And sometimes a suppressor makes that even better, which is funny. But if guns aren't your thing, that's fine. Have a plan, a taser, pepper spray, a sharp pencil, something. Just don't be a victim. That's my biggest thing. And as far as like taking people's rights away, like, mind your business. Like, it's really that simple. So more Americans need to do that. Mind their business.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny you brought up the statements brought, and it's crazy how uneducated the anti-gunners are. And then you go to educate them and they claim that you're wrong, but they feel very passionate about something that they know nothing about. And the information is out there. You hear members of Congress go, an AR-15 weighs as much as 50 shipping boxes, or a 9mm will blow your lung clear out.
Right.
It's insane. We've seen even news channels when they're trying to push anti-gun rhetoric, going, this is an AR-15 shooting a watermelon. No, that's a shotgun shooting a watermelon.
Right.
Come on.
Well, look at the videos they put out of a bump stock when that happened. Those weren't even, they put a grenade launcher on the end of the gun. I'm like, if you put any weight on the end of a gun, it makes the bump stock mess up. So, like, don't overload it's all fear mongering. That's all this is fear mongering, and it's horrible. Like, there's enough bad things out in the world. Let's not make up things. So.
Well, and that's what it is. Fear sells. Fear sells, and the 24-hour news cycle needs something for people to get hooked on, and fear is one of them. And it's insane. The attacks that they do on this, not knowing anything about it, and then you go to educate them, and then they get mad at you. But then you're like, well, here's the actual statistics. Here's all the data. Here's the actual truth. Well, you're wrong because you don't agree with me. And that's an issue that I've brought up before, is as Americans, I don't know when we lost it. I don't know how we lost it, but we lost the art of civil conversation, and we've lost the art of talking.
You touched on it. The word's truth. Nobody's interested in the truth, John. I mean, if you were interested in the truth and you're in the Senate Judiciary Committee over bump stocks a couple of weeks ago and you wanted to know what they were, wouldn't you call the inventor? Like, if you want to know what a bump stock is, who do you think can explain it to you the best? They've never called me and asked me. They've Florida made up some crazy law about bump stocks too, which it does none of the things that it says a bump stock does. These people are just making up rules and they don't even know what they're doing. And they've got the person they could call and ask, hey, how does a bump stock work? But they don't even bother. They just make up arbitrary rules. And then I look at the law and go, well, this is a dead law on the books. Like, you look at it and there's two definitions underneath a bump stock, and a bump stock doesn't meet either one of those definitions. So I'm like, this law in Florida, the bump stock ban in Florida, I'm like, it's a law with no teeth, but it scares people. And I'm like, that's not okay. And so that's something that I hope somebody addresses, is because the Supreme Court's definition, they defined what a bump stock was, clearly defined or clearly sets aside what Florida's definition is. So, I mean, that's the big thing, is people don't want to know the truth. They don't want to ask those questions and become educated, because then if they become educated, they have to take accountability and they can't just side with their feelings. One of the things that I've noticed over the last 5 years is we've stopped using words to communicate information and logic, but we've started using words to communicate feelings instead. And I think that's why everybody's so confused, is we stopped talking about information. We started talking about feelings.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, dealing with it, I've dealt with it before. It's safe spaces, and you can't say mean things, and Sometimes you got to say the mean things to people. They need to know. Unfortunately,
sometimes it's the truth.
Yeah. Truth hurts. It does.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell people where they can find you, socials, website, anything that you want to give, any way they can support you, all the above.
Yep.
Go ahead and plug away.
All right. We're on bumpstock.com or slidefire.com. We just brought back the slidefire.com domain. We've got our products rolling out one after another. And as we get the tooling on, you can find us on Instagram. My personal handle's the Bearded Prophet or Slidefire Reboot. We're on X as Slidefire and YouTube as well as Slidefire. So maybe Zuck will give us our Facebook page back. Unfortunately, we haven't had much luck with that. As far as supporting us, tell your friends, tell your family we're back. Check out my products. If you can buy one, you want to buy one, it's fun. Like, it's a blast. Go out to the range, have a good time, be safe. Like, let everybody shoot it. Like, use a 9mm or something like that so the ammo's not as expensive. But it also works on the 22 as well with a good trigger. So there's multiple ways to go out and have fun. The biggest thing is, like, just know what your rights are. Like, know what your rights are. Educate yourself. Stand up for those things. Don't let them push you around. And be kind to each other. Like, we're people. We're people, and we should care about each other. And support my company if you would. Like, we're going to fight this thing all the way through. We're going to get some answers. I'm hoping this sparks more conversation. I would love for President Trump to pick me to lead the congressional investigation into what happened at Vegas, because there's a lot of people that deserve answers. I'm one of them. So turn me loose. I'll figure it out. I just got to take the reins off me.
Well, I appreciate you for being on and sharing your story. Guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go buy a bump stock. Go hang out. You know, this guy it's been a blast for the last hour or so that we've been talking. Again, guys, like, share, subscribe, leave a little, hit the little bell for notification, leave a 5-star review on all podcasting hosts, and we will catch you on the next episode.